Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special edition podcast here for Jackrabbit Illustrated and Splitting Hairs. Got Chad with me.
Hey guys, how's it going today?
Yeah, Chad and I thought that we're in playoff football. We're playing December football, and there's nothing better than that. And one of the best parts of playoff football is getting to know new opponents, right? And even if it's not brand new, it's still somebody you don't see. You haven't banged heads with them yet, and we like to learn a little bit more about the teams, more about the fan bases. So that's why today we've got Mr. Zach Mackey on with us. Hello, Zach.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, and again, very much appreciated. Zach's been play-by-play voice for Montana State Bobcats since 2019, correct?
Yes, that's when I first got here. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. And again, MSU, not a team that we're unfamiliar with. I actually was out in Bozeman for that for the Gold Rush game in, gosh, what would that have been? 2017, 16? That long ago?
Mm.
Man,
is that
anyway,
the one where Chase scored on the
yes,
fake field goal?
It was very good time. So anyway, we had the home and home with them. We're doing that again. So anyway, great program, great school, but obviously now we're going to square off in the semis. So. Talking about Bozeman, Zach, I guess, again, I can speak from experience what a cool town that is, what a great vibe the stadium has. Got to go out there and hung out with a former teammate of mine, Blake Seeds, who lives out there, and had breakfast at Jam, which I've talked about in here about 7 times. I'm working on a sponsorship with Jam, dude. That was the best breakfast I've ever had. It was so good. But anyway, you guys obviously sold that game out super fast here on Saturday. What kind of vibe should the Jackrabbits expect?
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement around here, and it's one of those things that just anytime it hasn't been done in so long. I mean, since 1984, it's been a really long time since they've been able to have an opportunity to host a semifinal game. I can tell you this: so the game got done. They went ahead and opened up. We had about 4,000 tickets. They wanted to give the season ticket holders a little more time to get theirs. Those 4,000 had already sold out by the time we landed that night. The next day back in Bozeman, it ended up being with the night game. And then they opened it up, and just about every single season ticket holder, all about 12,000 or so, took their tickets. So there was only about 1,000 left or so and they opened some standing room only tickets, and those were gone within 10 minutes on Tuesday, and students are sold out. So I'm anticipating over 20,000, maybe around 21 or so. We'll see. I mean, it's got the potential, I think, to be one of the most attended Montana State football games in a really long time. And this season, I mean, there's been a lot of excitement as it is with the new coaching staff and that. We've sold out every single game of the regular season for the first time in school history. And so there was already kind of that excitement. And then the playoffs, sometimes it's hard as this weather. I got about a foot of snow behind me right now. That isn't always the most inclusive to be sitting out of the stands, but yet the people are excited to be able to get out there for this for one of the first times.
Well, they have a lot of reason to be, coming off of, you mentioned the tickets being sold right away on your way back from on your way back from that game. Can you talk about that briefly? I mean, anyone that actually pays attention to FCS football shouldn't have been surprised that the Bobcats could walk away with a win. I mean, they're a very, very good team, but I don't think many people saw it going down the way that it did. Can you kind of talk about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's one of those games where it just all starts so fast, and all of a sudden, at 3 minutes into the game, it's 14-0, and I turned to my broadcast partner. I'm like, my goodness, what is happening? Like, I thought that Montana State had every intention to be in that game and to win that football game, but I didn't expect it to be 28-0, into the second quarter in that. And it just was one of those things when things are rolling and going your way, you get the turnover, you quickly score, and you get turnovers like that, you're able to take kind of a different approach. They went with kind of a trickery, the Philly special out of the gates to get that touchdown. And it's just one of those things on the road. And I mean, South Dakota State knows it well, especially this season on the road. If you can get the momentum going early on and get it rolling your way, it's just so critical. And winning football games on the road is not easy, but the way that they were able to just get that quick start, I think a lot of it too was, we had week 1 against UT Martin. Tommy Mellott didn't, I think, completed 1 pass or something like that. So they anticipated coming in, it was going to be an all-run scheme type of thing. And there's no question Tommy can throw. It was 35-mile-per-hour winds on that game. The wind was crazy, and all of a sudden he started, kind of showing that he's got a little bit of an arm, and that's what kind of opened up the door. It seemed like too early on.
So that's actually where I wanted to go next with this, Chad. I'm assuming you're in the same boat here.
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine. I was just gonna say, Tommy Malotte's kind of he's been playing a little bit here and there, but as a starter, he's really a new addition. Can you talk a little bit about what that's meant? I mean, you guys go through some turmoil. You have a guy hit the transfer portal, a guy that's maybe known a little bit more for throwing the ball, and touchdown Tommy comes on, breaks onto the scene, and just, I mean, I don't know how to say it any better, but he pretty much wowed me with that game, like kind of blew my socks off.
Well, I got a quote. Was it Brendan that said he already called that Tommy will never pay for a beer in his life in the state of Montana?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. Guys, it's so crazy because Coach got here in February, and we started doing some coaches shows with him in March, just to kind of get him out there, a little bit of spring practice. And the very first coaches show we have, someone submits a question and says, what can you tell us about Tommy Malotte? And Tommy had just gotten there during COVID. I didn't know much about him. I knew he was a good player from Butte and that, but I didn't know much about him. Coach didn't. He was fourth on the depth chart of the quarterback spot. He said, he's doing his job. He's behind three guys who have won Division I football games. He's learning. He's going to make an impact on special teams. What Coach said. He went across the state in May, then kind of for kind of the round table, different stuff, and people came up and said, I think Tommy needs to be higher. Tommy needs to, and he said, he's working well. He's working, his butt off, and he's playing well. And then it kind of turned into, all of a sudden on special teams, those first couple of weeks, he made a real impact and kind of showed that he's got great speed. He's able to get down the field. He did a lot of that on special teams. They put him in some of those kind of situations where they wanted to run the ball, put him back at quarterback. And after the Montana game, the final game of the regular season for the Bobcats, it was probably their worst offensive production of the season. Just couldn't get things moving. It seemed like that offense had stalled out after it had been able to put up 40 a couple of times earlier on in the year. And Coach made the decision on Sunday to let the team know that they were going to go a different position at quarterback. Tommy was the starting quarterback. So everyone in FCS, all of a sudden 2 days before the playoff game sees that the Bobcats starting quarterback is entering the transfer portal. And yeah, that's the case, but people who were following it and that knew that a decision was already made to make a switch. And Tommy's he just brings kind of an athleticism at that position. I mean, you guys know, if you can get the hands in the best athlete on the field, you're always going to, that's the spot you want to be. And he's one of the best athletes on the field. He's a Butte product just down the road a little bit. So they're super proud of him, and so cool to be able to see him get an opportunity. I mean, he makes his first career start on the first playoff game of the year, and so far has gone, with back-to-back wins in the playoffs, been able to get him to the semis. And he's just the most super humble guy and just a really, really great athlete. Played a whole bunch of sports there at Butte, and has come and been able to do a lot at that quarterback spot.
Having really athletic guys at quarterback, you guys aren't really, that's pretty common for you guys, because Troy Anderson used to be your quarterback, right? So
yeah.
Geez, and now he's playing defense. That's
cool. How about this? This is kind of a cool thing with Troy. So Troy came in as a freshman. He was a running back. He was the Big Sky Freshman Player of the Year at running back. Okay, then they move him over to quarterback his sophomore year. He becomes an all-conference quarterback and has a single-season record for rushing yards at the quarterback spot. Then they move him to outside linebacker last in 2019, because I thought that's where he had his best shot at going pro. He becomes an All-American outside linebacker. And then this year they move him into the middle, put him at middle linebacker, and he's an All-American linebacker this year and up for the Buck Buchanan Award. We'll see what happens, but he's a tremendous athlete too.
Jeez. Yeah, just an all-around football player. That's definitely a name that I think anybody around the country has probably heard, off and on. Going back to Tommy, though, quick, don't want to put words in your mouth, but the picture that you're painting is that the lack of throwing in that first game was really driven by the weather. So what I wanted to get at, what do you expect? Because you look at, from our standpoint on paper, if you haven't watched much film, you look at a guy that played sparingly, then played a game, didn't throw the ball, and then threw a hell of a game to beat the number one seed. So what do you think we're going to see out of him?
Well, yeah, the first game was, I mean, it was crazy winds, 35 miles per hour against UT Martin. No one was really able to throw the football or get into much of a rhythm that way. And I talked to coach on Friday. We do an interview beforehand, and he said, I'll tell you, Tommy's arm's gotten a lot better. It's a lot better than where it was at the beginning of the season. He's been practicing that element of his game, especially. And he said he would put him up with with Matt in the same category, A and B, as far as throwing and their ability to throw. He just didn't have that ability in that game because of the wind and that. I don't think if there was another quarterback, it would have been that situation. And then on last Saturday, I think people who watched that game, so there were some throws that was like, okay, that's a pretty solid throw. It's not just a slant, across the middle you're hitting quick. That was an into the basket of the arms type of over the shoulder type of catch. So, I think that he's got the ability to throw, and that was something that Sam Houston didn't expect coming into the game, and I think they didn't really respect that maybe, and that's why they found themselves down and didn't really know. They were anticipating more of an option type of quarterback who's going to run the football, has got the option to pitch at either side, and that's just I think he's been able to grow in the last year, in the last not even year, really throughout the football season from the beginning of August to now, into that arm and kind of have more of an ability to stretch the field vertically.
So I'm glad to hear you, I guess, explain that a little bit, because again, like I didn't expect that coming in. You caught a lot of people off guard here last week. And I mean, I don't know, the comparisons I think that we made within our group, Chad, I called him Tim Tebow. I forget, Kyle called him, who was the Washington guy? I'm going to forget. But anyway, clearly a hell of an athlete. The guys looked amazing. Let's flip now, maybe talk defense a little bit, because at least my opinion this whole season from a distance, I've watched a handful of games. I enjoy enjoy checking out what's going on over in Bozeman, and defense clearly seems to be the strength of the team. I think anybody that looks at a stat sheet is going to be able to tell that. Looking at just what some of your fans think, is that your D-line is the strength maybe of that defense, and that they can handle pretty much anything thrown at them. So I guess, one, do you agree with that as a unit, the D-line is the strength of the defense? And then could you maybe kind of describe that group a little bit?
Yeah, guys, it's a hard choice for me to go either D-line or linebackers. I think they got some really solid linebackers on this year's team's defense too. But up front, what they've been able to do, and as I've watched some of South Dakota State, I've seen the same, is rotate those guys up front, keep them fresh, be able to go quite deep in those first couple of positions. And Coach said after the first couple of games, he said, we need to get deeper at that position. They were only running about 4 or 5. And he said, if we want to make a long run, we've got to get deep. And they've had some injuries at that spot. And what that's done, I think, is get those other guys ready to go, those younger guys in ability. But yeah, I mean, it definitely, if you talk to them, it starts up front. And with guys like Daniel Hardy on the outside, he's been phenomenal. He's had an All-American season this year. Amandre Williams and Chase Benson. There were some questions about kind of how that was going. They transferred a lot, or not transferred, but rather graduated a lot at that defensive line spot after 2019. I think the defensive line has come in and done a really good job. There's a guy in the middle too, in Chase Benson, who his stat line is just okay, but his ability to be able to take up blocks and be able to fill a couple of gaps up there up front has been really, really critical for those linebackers, and then to be able to make plays, to be able to play free. And that's why Troy Anderson's been able to have the season that he has at that linebacker spot. But yeah, I think the way they've been able to stay fresh up front has helped them be able to stay in football games on the defensive side.
And you're right with the Jackrabbits having something similar. With we've rotated. Gosh, Chad, how many?
I mean, at least 8 to 9.
Yeah, I was gonna say 8 to 10 without trying to name everybody off. And then we had in a similar manner, we had some guys out for various reasons towards the middle of the season, and I do think it helped push that depth. And right now we've got a couple of guys coming on here at the end as our if you look at just the stat sheet and honestly even watching the flow of the game, the impact, we've had a couple of younger guys maybe really kind of steal the spotlight. So that's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, and it really seemed like they did a great job of getting home to the quarterback against Sam, and I don't know that I've seen anybody make their O-line look that porous.
Well, that's when I think Montana State's been at their best is getting after the quarterback, keeping him on the run, getting him out. I mean, anytime you do that, you're going to be obviously in a football game and you're going to be obviously probably winning the line of scrimmage, that says. But, whenever they've kept that quarterback kind of rolling around, moving around, it's helped out get some interceptions. They had 3 picks in that game against Sam Houston. A lot of that, I think, was forced. And coming into that game, Elliott he hadn't thrown an interception, I don't think, in 4 games or something. But their ability to get to him, keep him running out of the pocket, I think made him force some things that he hadn't in those first couple of games or throughout the season, really.
Are you guys relatively healthy? I guess that's something we didn't touch on at all. I mean,
I was going to ask the exact same thing.
Yeah, and obviously just whatever's public knowledge, of course, because I mean, the Jacks have kind of gone in and out. We got our ugly injuries out of the way early, and we're in pretty decent shape. I think it's probably no secret. Secondary is a little bit thin. We had a few guys out. At least one was due to illness. I would sure as heck hope he's back at this point. How are you guys looking?
Yeah, they got pretty banged up on Saturday. There's no question, and that's one of the things that I think is interesting for you guys, and we can get but about playing that spring season. I mean, there's been so much football here in the course. Montana State didn't play in the spring season, so they've kind of had an ability to stay a little bit more healthy. I think guys had obviously a really long time to be able to get ready. Chase Benson and at the defensive line spot, and then Ty Okada at the nickel spot, they both did not they went into the locker room, came out in regular street clothes, shoulder injuries for both of them in that game against Sam Houston. And Troy Anderson at the linebacker spot got kind of beat up a little bit. And as far as what coaches just said, that they're all working to be able to get back, and they're working to be able to get back. And that's how he's left it out there. And that's what they're trying to do. There's been some injuries, at times that have moved guys around. The offensive line, right tackle, TJ Session, he went down a couple of weeks ago, and they were kind of struggling to fill that spot on the offensive line. Rush Reimer's come in there, and he's played a lot better, I think, the last 2 weeks especially, than when he first maybe took that over in the Montana game. And so that's been one of the offensive line changes. But, yeah, defensively, they got beat up a little bit, and they're hoping to be able to have those guys back for Saturday.
Now, I know we talked a little bit about the quarterbacks running, but you guys got a pretty excellent running back there in Afonso. Can you tell us a little bit about his game? Is he more of a shifty back or a smash back, or does he kind of have it all?
Yeah, Chet, he's more of kind of a between the tackles, kind of put the head down and be able to pick up those 4 or 5 yards up the middle is what he's been critical in being able to do this year. We've seen he went out of the second half of the Idaho game, and this is a different offense whenever he's not involved and whenever he's not 100%. That run game doesn't become maybe quite what it was whenever he is there. But yeah, he's got big shoulders. He stands at about 5'10" or so, and he'll kind of push the pile a little bit if he can. They like to go a lot of second back through, use the fullback a little bit, use the tight ends to kind of be the lead blocker at times too, and go second back through. But yeah, that's kind of been the MO for that run game with Isaiah.
That sounds like the style of offense that we're happiest watching for sure. I mean, it's such a weird situation that we're in because we've got the best back in the country in Pierre Strong, right? It's phenomenal home run back, so fun to watch. Can break one for 80 at any given point. I think absolutely got robbed not being up. For the awards at the end, just ridiculous. But I could rant on that for quite a while. But having Isaiah Davis out the beginning of the season, just with his style of running, there was a couple of those close games that I think maybe would have gone the other way. Not because Pierre isn't capable. I mean, again, my God, he's the best back in the country, and I'm not going to apologize for that. But when you've got someone that can just consistently get 4 yards in a cloud of dust, and I don't care what you throw at me, that just changes a game. And it can be so, as a former defensive player, that is the most frustrating thing in the world when you've got somebody that makes contact at the line of scrimmage or a yard in the backfield, you gang tackle, you get to the ball, and you still can't stop someone from getting 3.5, 4 yards. Like, it's just maddening. And that's what you get with those kinds of backs.
Yeah, you do, and I'm excited to see kind of the matchup. One of them is Pierre Strong. I agree with you. I think and there's no question he's the best running back in FCS right now. And then on the other side, Troy Anderson, who's up for the Buck Buchanan Award, to kind of see how to see how they're going to go back and forth kind of with the linebacker and the running back. That's going to be kind of interesting to see.
So you're saying that the former NDSU likes to run basically NDSU style running backs straight up the gut.
Yeah, that's kind of the MO. And then Wyoming too, if you look, I mean, there wasn't much of a difference there whenever Coach Vegan was there. So yeah, there's some continuity for sure.
Yeah, maybe putting you a little bit on the spot here, but in the Brawl of the Wild game, what would you say was the difference maker that made that contest go the way it did?
Well, I would say that you got locked down into kind of a run only type of style, not really attacking the field. The field wasn't stretched much. Rather it stayed between the hashes. Nothing really happened out there. I think a little bit of that was, offensively, it was things just weren't going, and then you get behind, and really the defense only allowed one touchdown the entire game. And the score doesn't show that because they kick like, I don't know, 5 or 6 field goals and ended up getting a whole bunch that way. But I think the playbook got so small between the hash marks because things just weren't going. They were trying to get something going and it just never got going, unfortunately. And once that thing started to slide, they had 28,000, a new stadium record or something, and they were loud, they were into it. And it was hard to come back after that.
Those emotional games, weird stuff happens, and anything, mistakes compound. And I don't want to say I don't hold it against them, but that was one I thought you guys were better than an 8 seed to begin with because you should have beat Wyoming. Then your only other loss is, again, that emotional game that to me, you almost have to discount those. They count more when you win them, but to me, like I wasn't concerned about that at all. And again, wasn't surprised that you took care of business down in the very dark, weird stadium.
So speaking of that,
in Huntsville,
people want to know, you may or may not be aware, but Sam's offensive coordinator was wearing a headlamp. Did you have to have one of those to make your call, or did they actually provide you light?
They did have lights in the press box. They don't have any windows that open. So you're just sitting in a box feeling like you're watching a game, not even at it. And then also with the track and the stadium, you're so far away. So I'm looking through binoculars and I still can't even see exactly. They have you sitting so far away. I'm just like, I'll be interested to see how the FBS thing works and all that there.
Got it. Let's go back to defense here quick. Again, it's well publicized. You guys have a fantastic defense. Is there, I don't want to say weaknesses because that sounds like bulletin board material, but have they struggled with anything this year other than giving up more points than they would have hoped to against Montana? It's hard on paper to find a problem with your defense.
I know it is. When I look at it too, the teams are averaging right now less than 2 touchdowns a game. And really there hasn't been 2 touchdowns scored since you got to go back to quite a way in the regular season. So it's been a little bit of time, and the one thing I would say that they've struggled with a little bit is tempo. Whenever tempo gets going, they haven't been able to switch out the defensive line. They haven't been able to, like they like to do. And that's kind of hurt at times whenever they've ran that high tempo. For the most part, though, the run game's been able to be pretty effectively stopped. The secondary, maybe a little bit that sometimes you get some of those mismatches with the tight ends. I think that's going to be a big one too. Is obviously South Dakota State uses those tight ends and they're really, really effective with it. So kind of how those matches go, we haven't really seen anybody that's gone to the tight end as much as I think probably will happen on Saturday and use them as much in their offense. So that's maybe one of the areas that I think this team is spending some time with.
That makes sense. Anything, I think, Chad, you got, before we close up here, what do you got?
Hey, I just wanted to ask you a little bit about the atmosphere of the game. You said there's going to be 20,000 some people there. I'm not familiar with your stadium. I haven't been there like Dallas, but you guys are probably a lot closer than what Bowers was, but not quite as on top as Missoula, right? As far as the stadium arrangement, and I know the backdrop's better looking than Missoula. People can, at me for that. I don't care. I'll disagree with you, but tell us a little bit about that, maybe, if you would.
Yeah, so one of the things that has changed probably since you came to Dallas was they enclosed the other end zone with the football facility now. So it's a football-only facility. It opened in September. It's about $16 million project that they just got done. And what that did is it kind of encompassed the entire thing and brought it all together. And you can hear some of the sound ricochet off that a little bit more so now than when it was kind of an open area on that end. The stands on the north on either side are fairly close. It's got a horseshoe effect basically on the side. The students are right next to where South Dakota State will run out, and kind of those first couple of rows. It would be interesting to see. I know the student tickets got bought up right away, which was kind of a surprise because with the graduation and everything, a lot of people have already booked their flights. If they're heading out, or they already have their plans to head out, but yet quite a few of the students still are going to stay around for that. So that's kind of good for that north end zone. It kind of makes it a little bit more so and kind of changes things. But there's a good little look of it behind, and you'll see the M on the side on the mountain. To the press box is on the same side that South Dakota State will be, and then the Bobcats will be on the other side of it. So it's been a cool environment. We this season averaged about I think right at about 18,700 per game, and the stadium record is 21,000. That was a Montana State game back in 2013 or so. So it holds 17,777, but then we typically sell about 2,000 standing room only tickets or so. And as many people as they'll let in there, they'll try to get in there on Saturday.
That's awesome. It's a great football town. It's a great football school. It's on the pod on Monday. I said that it's a smart football crowd. Like you can get games that there's a whole bunch of people, but they don't know what's going on at the game. I don't want to sound smug with that, but you know what I mean. I mean they understand situations. They know what's going on. They know when to cheer. Like they are very football savvy fan base that you have. So I have no doubt it's going to be pretty nuts, and I hope it is. It's going to be fun. And kudos to your students for selling that out, because I mean that's a tough thing, especially when I'd assume most of them are going home already. For them to come back, that's awesome.
Yeah, that is a cool deal. And I know the big thing they're pushing about is make sure you're back at the stadium by the third quarter, the start of it. A lot of people would allow them to go out during the halftime, and then people kind of linger their way back.
Oh, what's that like? I've almost forgotten.
You're saying second quarter's a little more rowdy than third, or third quarter's a little more rowdy than second.
Yeah, once they get back in there and everything, they sound the alarm to get everyone back in there. But no, it is. It's been it's a cool environment, and that the setting's great with the mountains in the back and that. And it's great whenever you got teams like South Dakota State, Montana State, North Dakota State, James Madison, who buy into this, and we're going to have a great, I think, semifinals on either side. People who care about it, fan bases that are into it. That's what makes it fun too.
Well, sorry to cut you off there, Dallas. I know you were going to rant about how we used to go out at halftime.
I was going to rant that we don't.
I apologize.
That was probably good for everybody. All righty.
You got any more suggestions for places to eat other than what Dallas had, just since Jim's going to be out there?
Okay, so he went to Jam, he said. I like that's a great morning spot. I also like Sidewinders, really good kind of lunch type of spot out there, kind of on the other edge of town. And the Rocking R Bar right downtown. That's where kind of everyone goes after the game. They call it the fifth quarter, down to the Rocking R Bar, and that's kind of the fun bar afterwards, right downtown. Main Street, you can't go wrong with it right now. We've got about a foot of snow right now. It looks like Christmas out there, and it's a fun scene right down there on Main Street.
We're at about half an hour here. We've kept you about long enough. Just in closing, could you sum up what you think the Bobcats need to do to walk away with a W on Saturday?
Yeah, well, I think that they need to be able to get a run game established and get it going, much like South Dakota State relies on. But I think they're going to have to be able to take some shots like they did against they're down in Texas in Huntsville. Whenever they took some shots early, they were able to get some turnovers. They've been obviously, and who isn't, a lot better when they've gotten those turnovers, those forced turnovers, some of them. But I think one of the key aspects is going to be not only that run, and that run has been huge, but there's a lot of question about Tommy Mellott, the arm. Can he stretch the field? Can he go after it again like he did last week? And that's going to be something that I think if he's able to have the same type of game with his arm, It could be well for Montana State, but we've seen the stout defense of South Dakota State. Obviously, that run game they have, that you give them the ball too much, and the ability they have to get those long drives together too is hard to overcome.
Well, Zach, I tell you what, it's going to be a great game, I think, no matter what. My pick was Jacks by 3. I think it's going to come down to a field goal towards the end. But, again, great school, great community. Sorry that there's going to be 20-some thousand broken hearts, but you got to do what you got to do. Zach, thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, that's
Thanks for your
awesome.
time.
Yep. All right, Chad, to close it out, like we always do, go big, go blue.
Go Jacks.
Go Jacks.
Sorry.